What is going on, guys? Pat on the shop, and tonight we're talking about porting Vortecs, how you can get a crusty looking Vortec head like this to actually flow half decent. Let's check it out. So as you guys know, I've been doing quite a bit of Vortec head flow testing. The one video I showed you how to do the chambers and how that was a significant improvement in flow through pretty much across the board. But there is still a little bit more to gain on the Vortecs, even though, like I said in the last video, most of the gains is actually in the chamber. But we're going to show you how a little bit of pocket porting can improve the higher lift areas, and what happens actually if you overport them, because that seems to be a trend that I've noticed online, is guys are really hogging out Vortec heads to the point where they look like they're going to flow good, but doesn't actually mean they're going to. So before I get rolling into this too much, I just want to say that this is just a video for the do-it-yourselfer guys, the guys that are on a budget. And that's kind of what I'm focusing these videos on, are the guys that don't have a whole lot of money to spend on a fancy set of cylinder heads. Sure, you know, a lot of the time it would be nice, but these Vortec heads, they really work well. I have a bunch of different motors here, a bunch of different heads like you guys seen in the videos, but I still just love the idea of a set of Vortec heads that you can find at the junkyard, you know, as long as they're not cracked or something. But just like this is a set I took off of like a 97 Yukon or something like that. And I just love the idea of being able to get the performance out of these heads that guys are looking for without having to spend a ton of money, because especially these days, not everyone has a ton of money to spend on a set of heads. So I just want to help give you guys the proper information and the proper techniques to get the performance that you're looking for without breaking the bank. There's guys that are gonna be able to port a set of Vortecs way past any of you do-it-yourselfers can, and that's okay too. This is not what this video is about. This is a video about actually giving you real flow numbers on porting techniques that I've tested on. As you can see, there's a lot going on with these heads. These are actually 305 Vortec heads here, and we're going to talk about those in another video, so make sure you subscribe, because you might find that interesting too. But this is one of my test Vortec heads, 906s here, 350 Vortecs, that I did a bunch of different testing on, trying to get the easiest way to gain flow without going too crazy and without actually changing the whole characteristics of a Vortec head. So we're going to start off and we're going to talk about the intake. I'm actually going to talk about the exhaust too, because I know a lot of guys focus a lot on the intake side and they kind of forget about the exhaust. There's kind of information back and forth about how important the exhaust is, and you got to get the flow out. Even though the piston is pushing it out, with a poor exhaust side, you're going to generate heat and you're going to have issues, especially on the higher RPM. So we're going to focus first on the intake, but we're also going to talk about the exhaust. So I'm not going to get into the details of all I did too much, because I have a tendency to ramble on. I love talking about this kind of stuff, but I know guys like, you know, just to get to the point. So I'm going to try to keep doing that for you guys and keep things rolling. But basically what I did is I did a progression of different types of porting styles, opening up things more and more. As you can see on this one here, it's opened up quite a bit. The valve guide is almost down to nothing. I'm at a visual, if you're using your flow goggles, if you're guessing if this is going to flow, this looks like it would flow quite well, and I guess in a way it does. This up top, this port actually flows not too bad, but you're going to see when you change the characteristics of the runner on a Vortec head, the pocket porting and the runner size, it really negatively affects the flow right up until about 500 lift. So you actually just kill the whole characteristics, what everyone loves about the Vortec heads, which is the small runner, high velocity head. So even though this looks like it's going to flow really well, this is not ideal on a Vortec head, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this for you guys. I wanted to just keep pushing things, and going more and more, so you guys can see that oftentimes just because it looks like it's going to flow well doesn't mean it's going to. So basically what this is the progression. This is actually the chamber, I believe this is the one I used on the chamber porting video, as a demonstration, but I was also using this head as one of my flow tests, and again a progression of a different type of porting technique without touching the floor and going different shape of the intake runner, and again negatively affect the flow. So all you really need to know about these two is this is what happens when you overport. So let's take a look at the flow numbers for these and you can see what I'm talking about. So if you take a look at this chart here, here's a perfect example of what happens when you overport a Vortec. If you get into them too much and hog them out like a lot of guys do, what happens is you lose velocity. GM did a really good job of designing the intake runner on the Vortec heads, and if you over pocket port them or start playing with the design of the runner, this is what happens in blue. You basically negatively affect the whole head up until about 600 lift, where you can see we actually gained went to 246. So if you told someone that your Vortec heads flowed 246 CFM, they might be impressed. But at the end of the day, we're actually negatively affecting the average flow of the Vortec head across the board. So this is not what you want, and this is why I'm doing this, to show you guys what will happen if you start messing around with the inlet side of the Vortec head, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you're an amateur porter. This is what you'll oftentimes see in a classic case of just because it looks like it'll flow doesn't mean it will. All right, now that we know what happens when we overport, let's talk about what I learned on the sizing of the throat opening and what the pocket porting, how much it actually helps, and what size we need to make this. Just note, if you're wondering why, even on the overported ones, why this finish looks cast, it's because I was playing with surface finish and I was bee blasting afterwards. I tried flowing them before and after and to see if there's any difference, and I noticed almost no difference. So that's another whole topic about surface finish on a head. Honestly, doesn't need to be a mirror finish. Oftentimes the combustion chambers can be as polished as you want, but the runner intake and stuff does not need to be a mirror finish. But anyway, let's get back to this. So as you can see here, there's a little bit taken out of the guide, mostly just rounded off, and then past this point, as you can see, that's when the actual original cast starts. So we're only touching from about just past the guide up to the seat. This is what you call a pocket port. The key to doing a pocket port is not to open this area. The key size, from what I found, and like I said on the other ones, I was just going bigger and bigger until I kind of determined the best possible size with given no decrease in the mid lift or low lift flow and gaining up top. So what I found was open this to 90% of the valve diameter. So in this case, you would be looking at about on a 1.94 valve, that's the stock Vortec valve, you'd be looking at about 1.75 inches. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to open this up like this one to 1.7 inches and then blend the rest of the seat area like this into it. And again, this is like all the heads I've been testing, we've just been playing with stock valve job. So there are possible increases with going to a 5-angle valve job, but I'm kind of directing these videos to the do-it-yourselfer that might not have access or want to pay to have a 5-angle valve job done. But honestly, you can get 90% of your flow increase just by following this simple trick here that I'm going to show you. So let's take a look at the flow numbers with just this little bit of porting and the benefits to that versus when we overported. So if you take a look at the graph here, in yellow we have the stock flow, in green we have what happens when you unshroud the valves, and again, like I showed in the last porting video, you do get huge benefits from unshrouding the valves. And then in blue, what happens when you unshroud the valves and add some porting up in the pocket porting. So like I just showed you guys, and I'm going to show you in a second how I did that.
But what you gain here, you don't. If you do this properly, you don't really lose anything. There's a little bit down here. You can see a little bit between, you say around 150 thou lift. There's a little bit less. But if you do this properly in the way I showed you, as far as size going to the 1.75 and not overporting, you won't lose the mid lift in here, which is the most important, like I showed when you overport. So as you can see, it basically follows the same, but up here is where it gets better. You're never going to flow it to 249 CFM at 700 lift, but honestly, my main goal, I was trying to hit 250 CFM. I couldn't quite get there with the 194 valve. I'm sure there might be guys out there that can do it, but maybe with a little bit more work and a little more finesse, I could get there. But with a little bit of porting, this is what I got. So just at the brink of 250 CFM, but that's at 700 lift, so not really realistic. But that little bit of porting, this is what you get, this little area up here. So as you can see, 95% of your gains are unshrouding the valves on the intake side, but you do gain a little bit up top when it comes to porting, like pocket porting. And again, this is just on a flow bench. Real life engine dyno results would probably show you a little bit more because you are forcing quite a bit of air through that cylinder head. So this just shows positive results here. So it's only going to be multiplied on an engine. So this is what I was going for, and this is what I end up achieving after on and off the flow bench a few times, which is a total peak flow of 249 CFM at 700 lift or 246 CFM at 500 with no loss versus stock and under 500 lift.
So I'm going to show you a little trick to get the sizing you want properly. This is just an example. I was originally using telescopic gauges. This is the one I was using for the exhaust. You can get bigger ones for the intake and stuff. But because I was back and forth on the porting quite a bit on the flow bench, I was kind of trying to figure out a way that I can like consistently change this port. Size-wise, because I knew after some testing that this was the key to increasing the flow, and it wasn't anything to do with the runner, in a positive way. But I was trying to like slowly increase the size, and then again, when I realized I went too big, start small, and then go a little bit more and more, and that's when I figured about 90% was key. But here's a little trick, and this might not be the most contemporary thing, but I just found it really worked well, and especially for you do-it-yourselfers, amateur porting guys, this is a trick. I don't know if other guys do this. This is just something that I came up with, and I'm going to show you that, and hopefully it'll work for you guys. Exhaust valve, a spare exhaust valve I had, and I actually wrapped it in tape until I got the size. I was playing with different sizes, but as you can see, this is 1.75. And I just kept playing with different sizing and stuff, but this ended up being the easiest way that I found to do it consistently. As you can imagine, I was getting a little frustrated with all the porting I was doing, and then once I realized, that the less is more with porting these Vortecs, this is a trick I came up with, and I found it worked really well. So what you do is you get a valve like that, wrap it in tape like I showed you there, and then we're going to put it in here. We're going to take bluing compound like this, and we're just going to spray it. Now you can see perfectly the lip around there with the material you have to take out. So I don't know if other guys do this. This is just a trick I came up with, and I found it was really easy to consistently get the same sizing without having to keep measuring and measuring. So as you can see, there's a nice lip around there. It's centered to the valve, which is what you want. It actually works really well. So all you have to do now is just grind out until you hit the blue, and then shape it in, and we'll show you how to do that. So all I'm going to use is just an Mac Tools air grinder with a rounded nose carbide like this. Is a Mac Tools carbide, and I'm just going to grind away until I hit the blue, and we'll see what that looks like. So after just a few minutes of porting with our carbide there, going right up to the bluing die, you can see we have the perfect size. This should fit nice and snug in there, just like that. Almost stay there. So that's what you want. And then as you can see, what I did is the back side here, closest to the spark plug, I blended that all in. So this is still the right size that we went with, but we blended away that ridge up until about into the valve guide here. So you can see past the back of the valve guide, nothing's been touched, but all we did was open this up, 1.75, and then blend the back part here. I didn't touch the short side radius other than opening up that ridge. All up here is stock, and we're not going to touch that. So we're just going to blend the back in, and next we're going to do the valve guide. There's what it's going to look like. As you can see, the valve guide's just rounded off and then cleaned up around here. You're going to maintain the same sort of, you'll notice that this side is a little higher than this side, as this way up. So you're going to kind of maintain that, but just clean that up around the guide and then blend it all together just like that. So you can see, let's talk about the exhaust side of things now. Again, a lot of people say different things about the exhaust. You don't have to touch it. I like to open the exhaust side up because a better flowing out the exhaust is just a cooler head. You don't want any sort of restriction as much as possible. Even though the piston's pushing the exhaust out, it's still important to have a good flowing exhaust side. And there's a huge room for improvement on the Vortec heads. And what I found on the Vortec heads is the exhaust side is not nearly as picky as the inlet and the intake side, so the intake runner. So the exhaust side, you can get a little bit more. You can open up the runner. It's just a very short runner, so it's not a lot there to mess up, and it doesn't take a lot of time to do. As far as the pocket port, very similar to the inlet side, where you want to do 90% of the valve diameter. So being that this is a stock 1.5 valve on this head, we're going to open this up in here to 1.35. You'll notice it really necks down on the stock head, the throat of the exhaust on the Vortec heads like this, but opening that up will have a significant improvement, and I'll show you real quick. We're going to go over this quickly, and I'll show you the flow results. So this being 1.35, as you can see, we do have some material to take out. This should slide in when we're done, and then I'll show you what I do with the guide and on the other side of the runner. Now that we got this opened up to 1.35, I'm going to work down and around the guide now. So here's where we're at. We opened it up, and then right around the guide we opened it up there, just touching the long side, the back here, without touching the short side. We blended this all in nicely, rounded off the guide, and now we're going to go into the manifold side and work our way that way, playing with the roof a little bit. Alright, on the exhaust side, we're just going to do the roof here. We're going to gasket match it to the top of the port here, and you can use your bluing die in your exhaust gasket, whatever you're going to use, and match it. Don't go too much. Actually, if you have a stock Vortec imprint, the top part here, the bottom, because the head's flipped upside down, but this is the top part of the head. This is your rocker arms are down here. But you're going to match the roof of this basically to the stock Vortec gasket. It seems to be about right. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so that's what that's going to look like. As you can see, we brought this down to here on the roof and then blended it all in around the guide. So it's opened up quite a bit. You don't want to go too crazy again because these are thin, but we can bring it just to that gasket line, I find, and that seems to be pretty good for flow on these. And then we're going to flip it over. We're just going to clean the short side up a little bit and not do anything too crazy there. As you can see, we just cleaned up the bottom a little bit on the short side, just to clean up the rough casting and open it up just slightly. And then the top, we went to the gasket mark. The stock Vortec gasket line actually works pretty good. As you can see on this one, there's the stock port. Try to get a good angle for you versus our ported one. Didn't really get into the walls too much other than just cleaning up the casting. You can actually see there's still the casting line on the inside, so it just goes to show I haven't taken that much out, just enough to clean it up. But we're gonna see how much of an improvement this makes. There's also the option of going a 1.6 exhaust valve. So let's take a look and see what the flow numbers look like.
All right, let's see what our exhaust porting work has done for us. So as you can see down here in the light blue, that's our stock exhaust port with the weird dip that the Vortecs usually do unless you unshroud it. Unshrouding the valves won't change too much other than like with the exhaust valve, other than removing this little dip I've noticed. But porting the pocket porting and porting the runner on the exhaust side of the Vortec is where you find the improvement. The opposite as the intake. So as you can see here, I also threw in gray, or sorry, in this blue. This is actually the 1.6 exhaust valve installed without any real porting. A little bit of just pocket porting, but no runner porting and no valve unshrouding. So as you can see, going to a 1.6 exhaust valve on a Vortec is a huge improvement, and you can actually get pretty close to 200 CFM with a little bit of valve unshrouding. You get a little bit more of a benefit from that with the 1.6 exhaust valve. And if you open up the exhaust port the same, you can actually get close to 200 CFM with a 1.6 valve. I don't have for sure full flow numbers. We have played with it, but I just don't have anything full flow numbers that I want to add to this that are 100% guaranteed that are matched to this head, so I didn't include those. But I'm going to tell you, you can get close to 200 CFM with a 1.6 exhaust valve. But as you can see, even with a 1.5, we got 185 or so exhaust flow out of it with our porting we did. It didn't take that much work, and it makes a huge difference. Close. Quite a bit jump here across the board. But if you don't feel like porting, just going to the 1.6 exhaust valve gives you even more benefits. As you can see, 300 CFM, they kind of match and then kind of just follow each other from there. But even under that, the 1.6 valve seems to be the biggest benefit compared to even porting. But then if you add porting on top of that, you could even see some bigger increases. So there you go, guys. That's what you can get. So there's your increase on your exhaust. There's your increase on the intake. This is a pretty good flowing head, considering you can pick a set of these up for up for about $100. So with a little bit of work, this is what you guys can end up with. Let's compare them to some other aftermarket heads so you guys can kind of get an idea. Guys, we have our ported Vortecs. Let's start off over here in blue. We have a Dart Iron Eagle in yellow, and then in green, I don't know why it's not showing up here at the bottom. This is the DNA aluminum Amazon head that I showed you in the one video there. And then the same thing, the blue is the DNA head, the gray is our ported Vortec, and the blue is the Dart Iron Eagles. As you can see, our ported Vortecs are holding their own pretty well. The DNA heads have an excellent exhaust side. It's flowing pretty much after 300 inches, 300,000 lift. It's pretty much winning everywhere. But as far as our exhaust side against the Iron Eagles, we're pretty matched up here for the most part, give and take a little bit. But considering the Iron Eagles have a 1.6 exhaust, we're doing pretty good. These are untouched 180cc Iron Eagles. But again, this is aftermarket head, so our stock casting Vortecs are doing quite well. And then up here, you can see everything is pretty tied up until about 300 thou. The darts kind of kick it up early and then drop off, and the opposite kind of goes with the DNA head. And right in the middle of it all is our Vortec head. So given that this is the smallest runner size, the Vortec head is doing quite well. In the lift area up until 500 thou, it's really right in the middle between the two. So that gives you a good idea of how well these Vortec heads work and what you can accomplish with them with a little bit of work. And again, this is the stock valve job. This is just me doing a little bit of work to them that I showed you guys, and that's just it. And you get, for $100 or $150 and a little bit of work, you got yourself, some serious power potential.
So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a lot of work back and forth on the flow bench to kind of figure out what to do here and make it as simple as possible for you do-it-yourselfers. This video is not really directed for the guys that are porting heads, because they already know what they're doing and they don't need to watch this, because there's lots of different opinions and different ways of doing things. This is just what I found, and I went back and forth on the flow bench a bunch of times trying to get the results that I was looking for. Personally, different combinations need different things, but this is what I found. I wanted to increase the flow on a Vortec head without losing the whole characteristics of the Vortec head, which is having that really excellent low lift, mid lift flow. So we did that. We figured out a way to do that. It takes not a lot of porting. You can do a set of heads, not that in a day, in a weekend, no problem, with just minimal tools like I showed you, some grinders. You can do my valve trick for the intake side. I really recommend that if you're not having a lot of experience with porting, because it just kind of takes the guesswork out of it. The exhaust side is key to opening that up, but the intake side, the intake runner, you don't need to touch that. I wouldn't recommend touching it. Maybe a little bit of casting cleanup if it makes you feel better, but you'll notice in this video I didn't even show you the intake runners because it's not important on these Vortec heads. And all the big guys that say it, David Vizard, the head porting guys, Super Chevy did articles on it. There's no benefit. You're only gonna hurt the head by getting in and porting in the runner if you don't know what you're doing. So pocket port on the intake, but the exhaust is a lot more forgiving on these Vortec heads. So please like and subscribe. Put out videos every week. Next week we'll be talking about the 305 Vortec heads. You might be surprised by these things with the whole ski ramp. They're kind of a weird deal. So look forward to that, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.